Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at one of the two turf stakes races carded for Saturday at Saratoga, the first Saturday of the official Saratoga meet. Race 8 is the Grade 2 Bowling Green, going the mile and 3/8 distance on the turf course for the older runners. And with the Saratoga meet kicking off this weekend, you do want to check out the packages that we're offering at DRF.com. If you buy that package with the clock reports and the betting strategies included, all 40 days of clock reports, all 40 days of past performances, you can save up to 72% of the value of all of those things individually by bundling them in this DRF Saratoga package. You can also just get the PPs at a discount, but you can check out both of those options at shop.drf.com. Mike, we've got a field of 8 runners entered for turf in this Bowling Green, 3 MTOs, but we're hoping that Yo Daddy Kuchar and Game Warden don't get to participate. And it looks pretty good for the weekend as far as the weather forecast goes for Saturday, at least, with this race staying on the turf. And if it does, the number 7 Farbridge is just way the horse to beat.
Yeah, just way the horse to beat. That's all you can really say about it. He's got the form. He's a legit, grade 1 kind of horse, David. And this is his distance. They tried to, drop him back to 9 furlongs last time. He ran fine in that race. Getting the additional 2 furlongs here, it really works to his advantage.
Take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Bowling Green, and you might be a little bit surprised to see Farbridge shown as close to the pace as he is here, Mike, but he is a horse that has gained improved tactical speed over the course of his career. He actually earned his first Grade 1 victory in the Sword Dancer last summer in gate-to-wire fashion, and he's just really versatile where they can be aggressive with him. They can also take him further off the pace if they go quickly up front, and I'm not sure how quickly they're going to go because it feels like the 2 horses showing up front, Tucson and Corruption, they're the ones with the tactical speed, but I don't think they're going to be flying in the early stages of this race.
I agree. It just didn't seem like they're going to be going that fast early, and that also works for Farbridge, as you mentioned. He's just really tactical. He does, they do like to get him over to the inside, and they should have an opportunity to do that. If they let these 2 horses go in front, he can sort of slide right over there behind them and get the trip he wants.
Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 starting over. And this is a horse that has had to start over a few times in his career, Mike, and got back to form last time improbably because it seemed like he was a horse that was never going to get back to some of those better efforts he had produced for the Mike Maker Barn or Rob Falcone earlier in his career. But he bounced back at a big price in that Cape Henlopen at Delaware. He finished 3rd in there, but it was a competitive effort for him, just barely beaten by today's rival Harrow, who we'll get to in just a little bit. Starting over, got a good stalking trip in that race, and maybe he's one that'll be a little bit more forward than he's shown on the pace projector based on the last race.
Yeah, he's a horse who they've been able to do whatever they want with him as far as trip goes. He can go forward and be effective as he was last time. They can sit back off the pace with him, and he'll still produce a run as he did a couple of times early last year down at Gulfstream Park. He ran 2 really nice races early last year, David, and then unfortunately for him, he just never really got to run again as a 7-year-old. So you don't want to be too hard on him for the Elkhorn last time. He was terrible in that race, but you give him a pass for that one. He rebounded last time. There are things to like about this horse. It'll be a price.
If you're looking beyond the favorite and trying to find a horse with upside in this race, maybe the number 2 Rezeen is a horse that you want to consider because he really came to hand when they stretched him out around those 3 turns, the tri-marathon distances during his 3-year-old season. He won a couple of races over that configuration at Saratoga last summer. They stepped him up in class in the Jockey Club Derby at the end of last year. He finished 3rd, but actually ran pretty well, never seeing the rail that day. And Mike, they came off the layoff last time in that race at Keeneland, probably a little bit too short for him. He also was a little wide on the final turn. I thought it was a good starting point, but he did miss a start, a race that was rained off the turf Belmont Stakes week. So now he's coming in off another little bit of a layoff.
Yeah, exactly. He is the upside horse in here, though. And it does feel like he's got the kind of potential to maybe eventually be really effective in races like this. We'll see how good he can possibly get. I liked his form last year, as you mentioned. Once they stretched him out, he seemed to really appreciate that. His return at Keeneland was fine. My takeaway from that race was it was way too short for him, but he ran really well that day. Stretching out helps this horse.
The number 3, Tawny Port, is the other Miguel Clement trainee in this race to go along with stablemate Farbridge. He's going to be a much bigger price than that foe. And Mike, this horse does have back races that give him a chance in here. He's got plenty of speed figures that put him within range of a lot of the contenders in this race, but his form really seemed to tail off at the end of last year. And he's had a couple starts now in 2025. They've both been really disappointing. I mean, he once was a horse that was very effective on the dirt, but it didn't seem like he wanted any part of the main track in that 1 3/4 Belmont Gold Cup last time. So he's just trying to find form from way back in his past.
Exactly. It's probably too early to give up on him. I'm with you. I remember when that race got rained off last time. I was like, you know what, Tawny Port, interesting here because he used to be a good dirt horse. He's not a good dirt horse anymore. I guess we know that. But listen, even when he was in really good form, and that was basically the entirety of 2024, he was in good form. Even then, he really had trouble winning races, man. That really bothers me about him. He's another horse, though, David. He can get the right trip in this race. He can be right up close if this pace is slow, and he tends to show up. I mean, it's not like he's impossible in here. I just don't know if I could talk myself into betting him.
We talked about Rezeen having some upside. Really, Todd Pletcher has both horses with upside in this race as he also sends out the lightly raced number 4, Tucson, a horse who has only tried the turf twice in his career. One of those was a 1.5-mile allowance victory when he first got on the grass at Keeneland this spring, and that was a promising effort. He was beating a weaker field that day, but certainly looked like the distance worked for him, and they just tried a spot that was way too tough last time, the Manhattan Mike. He was up close to the pace, never saw the inside, but still had no answer when they asked him around the far turn. So he's going to have to run way better than that.
Yeah, I mean, after I watched that Manhattan, I mean, I guess they feel like they have some kind of excuse for that race because he was terrible. Not only was he bad in there, he just looked like he was completely overmatched by those horses. They're going to come right back in another pretty tough spot here. I'm going to make him prove it.
Number 5, Webslinger, has been a real enigma, not just for handicappers, but I'm sure for the connections as well, because this horse has a lot of talent, Mike, but putting the wins together has always been a problem for Webslinger, and that's primarily due to his running style. He doesn't have a whole lot of early speed. It's really hard to time his late run correctly. He ends up settling for minor awards quite a bit. He ends up getting wide trips quite a bit. That was certainly the case throughout his 3-year-old season when he was beaten by Farbridge, once or twice, and actually turned the tables on him in the Saratoga Derby last year, or back in 2023, I should say. So there's real ability here. It's just a matter of whether or not the pace is going to develop and whether or not Jose Ortiz can time this late move correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you covered all the bases with him. This is, to give an illustration of what you're talking about, David, this is his most recent start up at Woodbine. And this is going a little shorter and it's on a different surface. But this is typical Webslinger here. He's just far back in this field and he is rolling at the end of this race, but it's way too late. He's got to settle for second again. This horse is talented enough to win here. One of the things that really turned me off about him, even more than that race we just watched, David, is the race 2 starts back last September, Colonia, where the horse that beat him's good, but man, that was a short field. They just put him right on the lead in a race where nobody else was going, and you just feel like it's a situation for him to take advantage of and pick up a nice little win. Nope, he was no match when that horse came for him. He settled for second again.
If I'm going to take the alternative take on his performances at the end of 2024, Mike, I'll say that he barely had any break from his 2-year-old season right up until his 4-year-old season, or when he went to the sidelines. He missed maybe a couple months between August and November of 2023, but they just kept running him, and maybe the wheels were kind of falling off at that point, and he needed the break. And the Cassie Barn is one that you generally want second off a layoff, so maybe he'll be a little sharper this time out. The number 6 is Harrow. He's the other horse coming out of the Cape Henlopen of Delaware. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race, as he will be making a move off the inside to challenge an upper stretch. That gray horse between rivals is starting over, who we already talked about. And like I thought, all things considered, Harrow got a pretty good trip in here, saved ground early, tipped out, couldn't quite seal the deal. And I just think he's stepping up to face a tougher field now.
Agreed. I mean, it's been obviously a great claim for Safi Joseph. He got this horse really good since they've taken him. But listen, that race we're watching right there, he got an absolute perfect trip in that race. And he wasn't good enough. And this field's tougher than that.
The number 7, Farbridge, like we said earlier, he's a deserving favorite in this race. He's just got a consistent body of work that makes him the one to beat in here. He generally puts forth his best race. He can use all different sorts of running styles these days, so I don't think you have to worry about trip too much. Though one point that Mike made earlier is something I do want to hit on, that he is a horse that runs his best races when he can get down to the inside and ride that rail for as long as possible, because he's a horse that kind of wants to lug in every step of the way. And when you're able to ride the rail, that becomes less of an issue for horses like this. And Mike, he got that trip last time in the Manhattan. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race where Joel Rosario somehow got him to the rail from the outside post position, and he got the right trip. The distance, though, might have been a tad too short for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he just runs a really good race here, David. I mean, they got him right up close to the pace in this race. And he's got a shot at this thing. He's trying really hard. He's not going to quite get there, but there's nothing wrong with this performance. And again, just stretching back out in distance feels like it's really going to work for this horse. It's also happens to be a really good spot for him. He's just the horse to beat.
If I'm going to play devil's advocate with Farbridge, it's that when you watch that Manhattan back, and we didn't get any other turf races on that Mellon turf course that day because they moved to Manhattan. It was run the next day. The only two turf races run on different turf courses. Actually, I think it was the Inter that they moved to Manhattan to. That race was completely dominated by horses that rode the rail around the turns almost every step of the way. The top three all stayed inside. Nobody else did any other running in that race. And also, you go two back to the Man of War. He beat Anglophile that day. I kind of thought Anglophile got a slightly tougher trip than Farbridge. So I'm not sure that he really is as good as maybe he was in the middle of last season. The jury's still out for me, and he's going to be a pretty short price in this race. And, Mike, speaking of those trips in the Manhattan last time, I do want to bring that up for the number 8, Corruption, as we move on to that horse, because the early stages of that race, you could see that Joel Rosario breaking to the outside of Corruption, riding Farbridge, was so intent on getting over to the inside. Corruption broke a half step slower than Farbridge and was just put in tight by that rival for really the first quarter mile of the race. He was pulling a little bit. He didn't want to be as far back as he was. And then he got put in that position where he was 2 to mostly 3 wide every step of the way in the Manhattan in a rail-dominated race. And he actually didn't run that badly to finish 4th, beaten less than 5 lengths.
He didn't run badly at all in there. I wonder if that really. I guess I'm not going to argue the point too much, but I think the alternative argument to that is the horses that ran 1, 2, 3 in the Manhattan were the 3 best horses in the race. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. This horse is fine. He gave Farbridge a pretty good fight in the Pan Am. You'll have to go back 3 starts on his PPs to see it. So it's not like he's impossible in here. I could see taking a shot with him if he's a good price in here, but I guess I'll wait and see how they bet the race.
Let's go to picks for this Bowling Green. Mike, are you going to try to beat Farbridge in this race? So likely favorite. I picked him at 6-5 on the morning line.
I mean, I thought about it probably for too long, and I just ultimately couldn't get to the one horse that I would be betting against him with any real confidence, Dave, and I put him on top.
And I'm interested in another horse coming out of the Manhattan, the number 8, Corruption. I think he's going to get a more aggressive ride here, breaking from the outside. Javier Castellano should have that option to go forward. And maybe Tucson's connections won't be so aggressive, given that it didn't work out for him last time. And if Corruption can slow down the pace a little bit, I don't think he has that much ground to make up on Farbridge, given their common race in the Pan American that Mike was referencing back in March. So at a better price, I'll put him on top. 8-5-7-2 for me and 7-2-5-1 for Mike in the Grade 2 Bowling Green, race 8 at Saratoga on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.